or they actually failed to get or to secure the stay orders. That meant that we now need to revert to the Finance Act of 2022. However, EPRA, who yesterday reviewed the fuel prices, have still maintained the VAT on fuel at 16% and not the 8% that is required now by the law based on the Finance Act of 2022. Is this a disregard of the court rulings and court orders? We pose this question: what became of Finance Act 2023 being nullified at a time that President William Ruto says that we need to have a zero-based budget starting the financial year 2025-2026. Remember, currently we're in the fiscal year of financial year 2024-2025, which already after withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024, the government was forced to cut its spending by 145 billion. Not that. That is after Supplementary 1 was signed into law. Supplementary 1 came less than a month after the new financial year began, which is unusual. But due to the unprecedented times with the withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024 due to public pressure, then the president was forced to do that. However, keen to note here is the development budget, which was hit by a whooping 105 billion Kenya shillings, whereas the recurrent expenditure was only slashed by 40 billion. Now, Kenya's inflation rate, if you're asked today, what is, Kenya's inflation rate? This is the answer, 4.3% as of July 2024. The CBR, that is the Central Bank of Kenya, reviewed the CBR rate, that is the benchmark lending rate, from the highest 13% to now 12.75%. But other countries such as Uganda, the CBR rates are now at 10%, meaning it's cheaper borrowing from Uganda than in Kenya. And so we'll actually be assessing what's the impact of that, especially to the investors. Remember, we have the new Cabinet Secretary, John Mbadi, who took over from Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, who warned, by the way, that increasing taxes does not reap, or does not translate actually to increased revenue. And so he's warning that any plans to increase taxes will flop. That is Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, who has just exited the docket, and John Mbadi, who is the former ODM chairperson, taking over that crucial docket. But guess what? Yesterday, already, John Mbadi met a representative of the IMF. Kenyans took issue with the Finance Bill of 2024 on grounds that it wasn't even our own document. They believed that it was, a document that hailed from the IMF, but already John Mbadi could be a man now under pressure to implement some of these policies. We'll be reviewing that this morning, even as we take a look at Ruto's affordable housing project. Remember, with affordable housing that is now being implemented, usually for those who are employed and unemployed, you can contribute 1.5% of your income. The government, as of April, had collected billions of shillings, and in fact, averagely each month, the government collects 5.5 billion. Now, the Housing Ministry, or the State Department for Housing, has admitted that it's not able to actually utilize all this money. And so they've gone to the National Treasury and bought bonds and treasury bills. We'll be assessing the impact of that and what that basically means, whether this affordable housing, project that is championed by President William Ruto is really something that is impacting our economy. In studio, I'll be joined right here on this set by Suleiman Shabal, Member of Parliament, East Africa Legislative Assembly, that is IALA. He's a non-politician from the coastal region. Ruth Kinyanjui, an economist, and as well Dr. Maina Kamau, who is an economist as well. A conversation that you can't afford to miss. Remember, Kenya right now, the discussion about the economy. And it's good to just be abreast with all that is happening in our country. I'll be sampling some of views actually this morning before wrapping up New Dawn, and later on actually from 6:30 to 7 we'll be reviewing what is on our dailies this morning, and from 7 a.m. focusing on this topic of the day. What does it mean to have an inflation rate of 4.3%? What does it mean to have budget cuts? What can we do now that we don't have the Finance Act of 2023 after the withdrawal of the Finance Bill of 2024? What did the Finance Act of 2022 really entail? EPRA was meant as of now to reduce the fuel prices by, the VAT that is imposed on fuel prices from 16% to 8%, but that has since not happened. That is what will form a better part of the conversation this morning. But let's first of all begin with these stories, where President William Ruto has now directed universities to issue new letters to parents and guardians clarifying the actual fees required for their children's education at the university level. The president criticized universities for previously issuing misleading information, which he claims has caused unnecessary panic among parents by indicating full costs instead of the subsidized amounts they're actually required to pay. Here now is Ben Kirera with this story.
President William Ruto has expressed concerns over the confusion caused by the university's initial communication, which he said could discourage students from enrolling in tertiary institutions.
We want letters to be released. Those that were released earlier to be withdrawn, and proper letters issued as to the amount of money the parent is supposed to pay.
Emphasizing the government's commitment to education, the president highlighted the increase in funding for higher education, which has been raised from 45 billion shillings to 82 billion shillings.
We will make sure that no child in Kenya remains out of higher education because of the ability of their parent. We will make sure every child has an opportunity to acquire higher education knowledge in our universities and in our TVETs.
President Ruto is currently on a 3-day development tour in Kisii County, which is set to conclude on Thursday. During his visit today, he inaugurated several key projects, including the electrification of Nyakiringi village and the construction of a Tago market in South Mugirango.
Niko na milioni 50 ya kujenga hii soko yenu ya Etago hapa. Na tunajenga soko 17 mpya kama hii Kisii County hii mzima. Tumewapatia bilioni 1.1 ya kujenga hizi masoko. Mukizalisha chakula yenu, mupate storage hapa, mupate cold room hapa, mupate market hapa. Ndio kilimo yenu iweze kuwasaidia kupata pesa.
Additionally, the president launched the Bomachoge Chache Affordable Housing Project.
Kama kuna jamii ambaye inastahili kuunga mkono hii program ya affordable housing ni watu ya Kisii na Nyamira, kwa sababu mashamba yenu ni kidogo. So nyinyi mkuje muishi hapa kwa orofa ya 7 ya 8, mteremuke muende kwa mashamba, jioni mrudi kwa orofa.
Kisii Governor Simba Arati lauded President Ruto's decision to include ODM party members in cabinet positions, suggesting that this move will help advance the government's development agenda.
Wale ambao wako na wasiwasi, sisi kama ODM hatujaweka mkataba wote na serikali ya Kenya Kwanza. Lakini tumekubaliana kwamba Mheshimiwa Rais lazima aongoze hii inji ndiposa izizame.
Tutashikana pamoja. Hii safari ambayo umeamua kushikanisha wa Kenya, hata sisi tuko ndani, hata hapa kwetu katika hii county tuko ndani, tunataka kufanya kazi pamoja.
Ruto's tour of Kisii County is expected to conclude on Thursday. Ben Kirera, K24, Nairobi.
Now, Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni has come out to deny allegations by Raila Odinga that former President Uhuru Kenyatta is behind the talks that led to the formation of the broad-based government. Kioni wants Odinga to take responsibility for his actions, insisting that Uhuru does not support the idea of the opposition being in government.
Sasa ile nchi inachomeka, Uhuru ndiye alinipiga mimi simu. Uhuru akaniambia mimi tafuta Bwana Ruto ongea na yeye. Kenya ikichomeka hatakuwa na nchi nyingine. Mpaka hii tuzime hii moto, watu waketi chini waendelee waliwane. William ndiye akanitafuta. Na mimi nikaongea na yeye wazi kabisa. Mimi unajua mambo yangu, mimi sifichagi mambo.
Nyinyi mnajua in the recent past Kila mtu amekuwa akitaka kusema ya kwamba wameongea na Uhuru. Kila mtu. Hata sasa hii ukisikia Mount Kenya kwa masishi, Uhuru, everybody is looking for validation from Uhuru. But it is important to take responsibility of the decisions people have taken. There is no point of throwing words or dropping names of individuals if you think that the decision you took was wrong. Maneno ya kubeba Uhuru kila pahali. Wewe umeamua kwenda kujinyonga, wewe jinyonge. Usikae kwa miti umefuta shingo alafu unasema Uhuru alikupatia kamba. Hapana, haiwezi kuwa namna hiyo. He wrote a letter to Kenyans and it was addressed to fellow Kenyans. That time we were dealing with the finance bill. He also said nothing is cast on stone, and William took back the finance bill. The letter is there. But his major concern is that Kenyans have been killed by the same people they elected to.
And now to a decision that must have been welcomed by the Gen Zs. The High Court has banned police officers from hiding their faces and obscuring identity, registration or markings of any motor vehicles used by the authorities during protest, further requiring them to affix name tags and service numbers on their uniforms. Bentura Komboka tells us more.
The High Court has issued conservatory orders requiring the National Police Service to comply with the 6th schedule of the National Police Act that stipulates police put on name tags when dealing with protesters. In a suit filed by Florence Wairimu after citizens' uproar on the presence of ununiformed police officers and use of vehicles with no plate numbers by alleged officers while making arrest during the recent Gen Z demos, High Court Judge Bahati Mwamuye has further directed that plain-clothed police officers deployed during demonstrations assemblies should not wear balaclavas or attempt to hide their identities that render them difficult to be identified by the public. The National Police Service has also been directed not to obscure the identification, registration or markings of any motor vehicles used by authorities during protests. A decision that has elicited mixed reactions from Kenyans.
Mimi mambo ya hii polisi kuwa na nini ya tags kudisplay jina yao, mimi sikubaliani nayo. Unaweza pata kuna wakati wa class between the two tribes. Unaweza pata huyo askari pia ni mmoja wa one of the tribes. So akidisplay jina yake hapa, itoe tu jina yake tu hapa, atakuwa anaji-expose from the other tribes. So hiyo mimi sikubaliani nayo. Waweke tu ile tu namba. Namba ukipiga tu hivi jina ya askari itatokea.
Tuliona wakati wa maandamano mapolisi walikuwa nakuja, mwingine amefunga mask, huwezi muona, huwezi jua ni nani. So kama amefunga mask na utakuwa unaona jina yake pale, unajua ni nani huyu. So mimi naungana na court. Na ingine tena niliona wakati hizi maandamano tu tuliona polisi wanakuja na gari haina number plate, yeye amevaa mask, hana kila kitu. So huwezi jua ni nani sasa unadeal nayo. Hujui ni gari gani sasa unadeal nayo. So wakuwe na namba.
Last week on Tuesday, the new acting IG Gilbert Masengeli had announced the presence of plain-clothed police officers as acting within the confines of the law, sentiments that were also uttered and defended by Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki, who explained the move as a crowd-controlling technique used for crime prevention during demonstrations. Bentura Kwambuka, K24.
Now, the Senate has opposed a motion to establish a special committee of 11 members to investigate the proposed removal from office of Meru Governor Kawera Mwangaza during a special sitting convened by the Senate Speaker Amason Kingi on Wednesday. The senators were divided on the matter, with the majority contending that the charges leveled against Mwangaza are weighty and ought to be investigated by the Senate in plenary. Muriel Adhiambo reports.
Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay! The nays have it.
The third impeachment motion against Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza will be heard by the Senate in plenary. This is after senators rejected a motion to form a committee to hear the charges against her, saying the matter is too weighty to be left in the hands of a committee.
There was a similar motion brought in the National Assembly to impeach a cabinet secretary. And the mood of the House in the National Assembly at that time was that the cabinet secretary must go. Then a select committee was chosen. And Mr. Speaker, they came back and said the minister should stay.
The Senate is on recess, and I know that people had committed to do other things. It is not fair to drag the entire Senate to sit here just to listen to these allegations. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, many of the people who are shouting plenary here, we have been with them through these processes before. You will be sitting there, and there will be 3 people in this chamber.
Committee sometimes in the nature, Mr. Speaker, can sometimes escape the attention of the public, Mr. Speaker.
I want to make a request that as we discuss, that we pay attention to the fact that nominated members are also capable of contributing to this debate, even if they are not going to vote. So I would suggest that we manage the time in such a way that even nominated senators are given ample time to contribute to this debate.
Kenyans are looking at the Senate now, and we want to participate fully.
The Senate, which was in recess, held a special sitting today to hear the charges against Mwangaza, which include gross violation of the Constitution, gross misconduct, and abuse of office. Vihiga Senator Godfrey Osotsi raised the question of suspending the county government of Meru, this coming in the backdrop of 9 registered voters of Meru County who have already petitioned President William Ruto to dissolve the county government under Article 192 of the Constitution and appoint an interim management board, citing irreconcilable differences between Mwangaza and members of the county assembly. Fresh elections would be conducted after the suspension period.
There may be instances where we need to look at the provisions of Article 192 of the Constitution. Whether to suspend this county and we send everyone home or not.
Meru is working. Some parts of Meru are not working, Mr. Speaker. We don't have a functional IEBC at the moment, Mr. Speaker.
Panya akiingia kwa gala, uchomi gala unatoa panya. Kwa hivyo, mstahiki Speaker, mimi naunga mkono tuvalie njuga swala hili mpaka mwisho.
49 members of the Meru County Assembly voted to impeach her on Thursday last week. 17 members voted against the motion, while 3 abstained. Following the rejection of the motion, senators will now reconvene on Monday and Tuesday next week to investigate the charges in plenary. Muriel Adhiambo, K24 TV, Nairobi.
At the same time, the National Assembly Committee on Appointments on Wednesday approved the nomination of Dorcas Oduor and Beatrice Askul as Attorney General and East African Community Affairs Regional Development Cabinet Secretary nominees, respectively. Oduor is an advocate of the High Court who boasts more than 30 years of experience in the field of law. Prior to her nomination, she held several positions at the ODPP, including Deputy Director, Head of the Economic, International and Emerging Crimes Department. Beatrice Askul, on her hand, served as the CEC for Water Irrigation, Agriculture and Land Reclamation for Turkana County. She had also previously served as the Director of the Rift Valley Water Services Board and the Project Officer at Amref, Kenya.
I dare propose to Kenyans that I think it is time that we adopted this model of governance every time after elections. That it is not sufficient for the winner of a presidential election to just restrict their sites on the side of the country that actually voted overwhelmingly for the winner. Presidents going forward will look at the nation with the lenses of the entire nation and always give us the best possible brains in the leadership at the cabinet and other appointments.
And I want it to go on record that I salute, it must be on record, His Excellency Baba Raila Amolo Odinga for the support of the female gender, for the nominee that was exhibited, that gender rule on female is quite fundamental in this country by the President, Dr. Samuel William Ruto. I want also to say that for the peace which was supposed to be maintained, even it was exhibited yesterday when Baba was in a function that President, the late Uhuru, also informed that stability was important. Electing and appointing the women creates stability in this country.
Order. Mr. Speaker, for the President to think about broad-based government has brought a lot of peace in this country. This is an idea that we need to thank the President for, and for inclusivity, especially in looking at different parts of this country, also balancing the agenda finely and looking at professionalism for purposes of advisory. Honourable Speaker, I congratulate the two and congratulate your team for also having done a good job, having been quite professional in terms of the vetting and asking the relevant questions to get the right people to do the job.
I also want to thank the President for recognizing the minorities, nominating Beatrice from the Attacker community, of which I belong. That is a milestone for us, and we are very proud of that. And that therefore means that in the future, there will be a test on them also on the table, because now the minorities are on the table. Honorable,
I just want to share with the House that I sympathize and empathize, because, Mr. Speaker, I'm aware of some few members on our side who were salivating for the position of Attorney General, starting with Honorable Kaluma, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Kaluma had bought 3 suits. You know, the first, Mr. Speaker, the first nomination of cabinet secretaries were the first batch were 20. So these 2 remained. So I met Mr. Honorable Kaluma in a suit shop, and he was buying 3 suits at a go, Mr. Speaker.
Well, we focus now on matters of education. Universities Academic Staff Union, UASU, has expressed its annoyance of following delayed and reduced payment of salaries of academic staff employees. As a result, they have issued a 7 days notice to the government to address the issue, or come September, they will not resume lectures. They have further rejected the new university funding model, saying it's not effective, while also decrying delayed capitation for continuing students. Harry Chimea reports.
Universities Academic Staff Union UASU has issued a strike notice come September if the government does not resolve their issues.
From September this year, I want to tell you there will be no university education in this country if the government does not want to be serious. But we are very impressed because the students have also given notice that they are going to strike in September. So it is very good for us because there will be no learning. So they'll start counting. From today, I give a notice.
The union has lamented over reduced and delayed salaries, highlighting Moi University and Technical University of Kenya as among institutions mistreating their workers.
Hapa sasa hizi vile tunaongea hivi hatujalipwa mshahara. Na mshahara yenye tunaambiwa tunataka tulipwe ni nusu ya mshahara.
Staff have today announced the start of a go-slow, which is likely, if these matters are not resolved, to result into a full-fledged strike until these matters are addressed. And we think the biggest problem we have in Moi University relates to 2 institutions, management of Moi University and council of Moi University. These 2 institutions need to be reorganized.
Kuna wafanyikazi Moi University ambao wamekaa zaidi ya miaka 20 mpaka wengine wameenda retire wakiwa chini ya kandarasi ama casuals kwa muda mrefu, ambao mpaka saa hizi wajelipwa pesa zao na wajekonfirmiwa, ambao wanafanya kazi kwa kandarasi wajelipwa kwa miezi 8 mpaka saa hizi.
And for that matter, this morning I'm going to release a strike notice for Technical University of Kenya.
They have also joined students in rejecting the new university funding model, blaming vice-chancellors for championing the model, yet it is crippling the management of institutions.
The government has been consistently reducing capitation for continuing students, while failing to release money for the new cohort in the funding model. Where will universities get the money to bridge the gap of what you have reduced? And the missing link in higher education is the vice chancellors. When they are with the government, the new funding model is working. When they get to university, oh, we have a problem in managing universities, we don't have money.
Harriet Chimea, K24.
Well, as promised, being on a Thursday as usual, we focus on the state of the economy, and today we ask, what came of the Finance Act 2023 being nullified? EPRA, in its pump review yesterday, has still maintained the fuel prices or the VAT on fuel at 16% and not 8%, which is contained in the Finance Act of 2022. Among other issues that we'll be focusing this morning on, in studio, I'm already joined by a very key guest, that is Dr. Maina Kamau, who is an economist, and as well Honorable Suleiman Shabal, Member of Parliament, Iala. Also set to join us shortly will be Ruth Kinyanjui, who is an economist. A conversation that you can't afford to miss. We'll be right back with this panel. Stay tuned.